My girlfriend stated, "Love can wait, but friendship can't. They'll be here after you." I packed my bags that night without another word. When she and her squad showed up at my new place days later, after 2 years together, my girlfriend chose her friend group over our relationship for the last time. I'm 26. My girlfriend Marissa is 24. And I finally realized I'm not dating one person. I'm dating 5. Let me explain. Marissa has this friend group for people who call themselves the Squad. Unironically, they do everything together. 24/7 group chats, matching Halloween costumes, the whole deal. At first, I thought it was sweet that she had close friends. Now, I'm wondering if I'm even in a relationship or just some guy who pays half the rent. The breaking point was our 2-year anniversary. I had this whole evening planned, reservations at the place where we had our first real date, tickets to see this band. She's been obsessing over, nothing crazy expensive, just thoughtful stuff, you know? So, I find her scrolling through Instagram and I say, "Hey, I've got something special planned for our anniversary next Saturday." Her face literally dropped like I told her someone died. Oh, babe, that's the same night as one of the squad members' birthday pregame. You know I can't miss that. I tried to stay reasonable. Well, what if you asked them to reschedule to Friday or Sunday? She was already shaking her head before I finished. No, you don't understand. She specifically planned it for Saturday because it's literally the only night everyone can make it. One person has a work conference starting Sunday. Another has been so stressed with her new job and someone just broke up with their girlfriend, so they need us right now too. She was getting more animated, like warming up to her argument. We all really need this night, Ethan. The group hasn't been together properly in weeks, but it's our anniversary. I said, "This only happens once a year. You can see your friends literally any other time." That's when her whole demeanor changed. She sat back, crossed her arms, gave me this look like I was being completely unreasonable. And then she said it. "Love can wait, but friendship can't. They were here before you, and they'll be here after." I just stared at her. They'll be here after. Not if something happens to us. Not, God forbid we ever break up. Just casual matter-of-fact after. Like our breakup was already penciled into her calendar somewhere between next month's group vacation and the next birthday party. After everything we built together, I was still just some temporary thing that could be rescheduled around brunch plans. This wasn't the first time either. My graduation from my master's program, she went to a squad member's housewarming party instead. My brother's wedding last month. She was too exhausted from a 3-day festival with the squad to come as my +1. Even when my mom was in the hospital for her surgery, Marissa couldn't visit because it conflicted with their weekly game night. But she expects me to drop everything when she needs something. Last month, she called me at 2:00 a.m. to pick her up from some dive bar across town because one of them was too drunk to drive. When I got there, she barely acknowledged me. Just kept taking selfies with everyone, while I stood there like an Uber driver. Then spent the whole ride home talking about drama between her friends and some guy from the bar. The worst part, how she talks about our relationship to them. I overheard her on the phone saying I'm going through a jealous phase and need to learn to share her time better. Like I'm some insecure teenager, instead of her partner who just wants to feel like a priority sometimes. I've tried talking to her about balance, about how relationships need nurturing too. She always promises to do better, then immediately makes plans that exclude me. When I point out the pattern, she accuses me of trying to isolate her from her friends. There's no winning. So, I started looking at apartments. Found a decent 1-bedroom about 20 minutes away that I could afford on my own. The lease application was sitting in my email drafts for days. I kept staring at it, hoping she'd realize what she was doing. But she made it pretty clear where her priorities were. I submitted it, got approved within 48 hours, which felt like a sign. Spent the next week quietly moving my stuff whenever Marissa was out. With the squad, which was convenient since that's basically every day. By the time she noticed something was up, I had already moved about 80% of my things. She came home Thursday night around midnight from some new rooftop bar. She immediately saw that my gaming setup was gone. I heard her calling my name from the living room, her voice getting higher with each room she checked. Ethan, what the hell is happening here? Where's all your stuff?" I was in our bedroom packing the last of my clothes when she found me. She stood in the doorway, scanning the room like she was taking inventory of everything missing. Are you moving out?" Her voice cracked a little. I handed her the letter I'd written. Tried to keep it simple and honest. That I needed to be with someone who actually wanted to prioritize our relationship. that I couldn't keep feeling like an afterthought in her life. She read it once quickly, then again slower, her eyes getting wider. When she looked up at me, it was like she was seeing a stranger. "You're seriously leaving me because I have friends? Because I won't ditch the people who have been there for me for years?" I sat down on the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. "Marissa, it's not about you having friends. Then, what is it about?" she snapped, waving the letter. "Because this whole thing reads like you want me to choose between you and everyone I care about. I want you to care about me too. I want to feel like I matter to you, like our relationship matters." She stared at me like I'd suggested something insane. "Of course you matter. But I can't just abandon my friends every time you want attention." I felt something twist in my chest. "Marissa, I asked you to spend one evening with me for our anniversary one. And I already told you why that night matters." "Yeah. And you made it clear it matters more than us." She threw her hands up. "This is ridiculous, Ethan. You're throwing away 2 years because you can't handle me having a social life. You knew who I was when we started dating." I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized she genuinely didn't understand. In her mind, I was the problem. I was the one being unreasonable. "I thought I knew who you were. I thought you were someone who wanted to build something with me. I do want to build something with you, but not if it means cutting off everyone else in my life. I'm not asking you to cut them off. I'm asking you to make space for me too." But she was already shaking her head. I could see in her eyes that we were going to keep going in circles. She saw this as me being controlling. I saw it as basic relationship maintenance. There was no middle ground we were both willing to find. After another 20 minutes of the same arguments on repeat, I finally said, "I'm done, Marissa. Done arguing or done with us. Both." The finality in my voice seemed to hit her. Her whole posture changed, like she suddenly realized this wasn't just a fight we'd worked through. I told her I'd be back for the rest of my stuff over the weekend when she was at another pool party, because of course there was a pool party. Left my key on the kitchen counter and walked out. Saturday morning, I'm in my new place, finally feeling like I can breathe again, when my phone starts going crazy. Marissa's calling non-stop, sending paragraph-long texts about how we need to talk this through like adults. When I didn't answer, she started having the squad message me too. One sent me this long text about how Marissa is devastated and I'm breaking up the family. Another called me immature for ghosting. By Sunday evening, they were calling me emotionally abusive for abandoning her without warning. Despite the letter, I'd left explaining everything. Then Monday night happened. I got home from work to find all 5 of them standing outside my new building. Marissa was in front with the squad arranged behind her like some kind of intervention crew. She started talking as soon as she saw me, loud enough that neighbors were looking out their windows. "We need to settle this right now. You don't get to just disappear and ignore everyone. We're all adults here." I told them there was nothing to settle. I'd made my decision. I'd explained my reasons and I wasn't changing my mind. That's when one of them stepped forward. "Dude, you're being a selfish piece of work. Do you know how much you're hurting her? How much you're hurting all of us? All of us." I asked what exactly I'd done to hurt people I barely knew. Apparently by dating Marissa, I'd become part of their family system, and leaving her was like abandoning all of them. It was literally the most codependent thing I'd ever heard. The whole thing was surreal. One was crying. Another kept trying to mediate. Someone was recording everything on her phone. And Marissa just stood there nodding along like this was all perfectly normal behavior. I told them they had exactly 30 seconds to leave my property before I called building security. When they didn't move, I walked inside and did exactly that. Security came out and asked them to leave, which they did, but not before Marissa shouted that this wasn't over. The calls and texts eventually stopped, but I still got the occasional message from random numbers. Building management knew to watch for them. I don't regret leaving, but I'm honestly shocked by how insane that got. Weeks passed. New apartment was great. Work was busy but rewarding, and I'd been reconnecting with friends I'd kind of neglected during the Marissa years. Turns out when you're not spending every weekend being the designated driver for someone else's social circle, you have time for your own relationships. Who knew? But then I started hearing through mutual friends that the group dynamics were shifting. One squad member was getting serious with his girlfriend. She'd been pretty vocal about thinking the whole group setup was immature and had been pushing him to establish better boundaries. He'd been slowly pulling back from the constant group activities, missing the weekly hangouts. Not responding to the group chat as much. Actually prioritizing his relationship. Sound familiar? Marissa apparently lost it when he said he couldn't do their annual weekend trip, because he and his girlfriend had already planned a trip to visit her parents. "You're becoming just like Ethan," was supposedly her exact words. Because, God forbid, someone prioritize their romantic relationship over weekend beach trips. But it gets better. Another squad member got a promotion that required relocating to Portland. She'd been trying to coordinate virtual hangouts and plan visits, but Marissa had been cold about the whole thing. Apparently she made some comment about how real friends don't abandon the group for career opportunities. Then there were two squad members who'd had an on and off thing for years that everyone just pretended wasn't happening. Well, it was happening again, but this time it was serious enough that they wanted to actually date instead of just hooking up after group events. Marissa was not handling this well because it changed the group dynamic. So, let me get this straight. When I complained about feeling deprioritized, I was being controlling and selfish. But now when she's feeling deprioritized by her friends, suddenly it's a tragedy and everyone is abandoning her. The best part, word got back to me that Marissa had been going around telling people that everyone was pulling an Ethan on her. Like wanting to grow up and build adult relationships is some kind of betrayal epidemic that I started. Meanwhile, I've been having actual fun for the first time in months. Went to a concert with some college friends I hadn't seen in ages. No group coordination required. No one insisted on taking Instagram photos every 5 minutes. And I didn't have to leave early because someone needed emotional support for their latest drama. It was revolutionary. I'd also started seeing someone new. Nothing serious yet, but Sarah was refreshing. She had close friends, but she also understood that relationships require one-on-one time to grow. Novel concept, right? We had dinner Friday night, just the two of us, and she didn't check her phone once. Didn't even occur to me how unusual that was until later. And I got a text from Marissa. First direct contact since the apartment building confrontation. "Hey, I know things ended badly between us, but I've been doing a lot of thinking. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime." I feel like we both said things we didn't mean. I just sat there staring at my phone for like a full minute. After months of complete silence, now this. Then the next day, she sent another one. "I know I made mistakes. I was young and didn't understand how to balance everything. But I've been learning and growing, and I think we could try again if you're open to it." I showed the messages to my buddy, and he just laughed. Apparently, word had gotten back to Marissa that I'd been doing well. That I was seeing someone new, and that I seemed genuinely happier. He thought she was realizing that maybe having a devoted boyfriend wasn't such a terrible thing after all. The timing was pretty telling though, right? Right when her friend group was naturally evolving and she was facing the reality that people grow up and their priorities change. Suddenly she wanted to revisit our relationship. Where was all this learning and growing when I was begging her to understand my feelings for 2 years? I didn't respond to the messages. I didn't owe her a coffee date or a chance to explain herself. The text messages continued for about another week. Nothing aggressive or manipulative. More like she was trying to find the right combination of words that would get me to respond. "I finally understand what you meant about balance. I see it now. The group isn't the same anymore. I think I was using everyone to avoid dealing with real intimacy. I miss talking to you. Not even about getting back together, just talking. That last one almost got me. We did used to have great conversations, especially early in our relationship. But I reminded myself that good conversation doesn't mean good partnership, and I stayed silent. Things came to a head when Sarah and I were having dinner at this Italian place downtown. I spotted a familiar group at a corner table. Marissa and 2 squad members. The others were notably absent. Marissa saw me before I could suggest we leave. Our eyes met across the restaurant and I could see her debating whether to come over. Sarah noticed me tense up and asked if everything was okay. I explained the situation briefly. To her credit, Marissa didn't cause a scene. She just gave me a small wave. But as Sarah and I were leaving, Marissa approached us near the exit. "Ethan, hey, I don't want to interrupt your evening, but could I talk to you for just a minute?" Sarah squeezed my hand and said she'd wait by the car. Probably the most graceful way anyone's ever handled meeting their partner's ex. Marissa looked different. Tired maybe, or just older. She started talking quickly like she'd rehearsed it. "I know you haven't been responding to my messages and I understand why. I just wanted to say that you were right about everything, about the balance, about priorities, about what a real relationship should look like. I see one of the squad members with his fiancée now, and I watch how they support each other, and I realize I never did that with you." I told her I appreciated her saying that, but it didn't change anything between us. "I know. I'm not asking for another chance. I just needed you to know that I understand now. And I'm sorry, really genuinely sorry for how I treated you, and how I reacted when you left. It was the first time she'd actually apologized without any qualifiers or excuses. She looked over at Sarah in the parking lot and smiled sadly. She seems lovely. I hope she appreciates what she has. And that was it. She went back to her table. I went to my car and Sarah asked if I was okay. I realized I actually was. The squad was essentially done. One member was fully committed to his new life with his fiancée, and barely talked to the group anymore. Another was loving Portland and had made friends through work. Two were dating now, but wanted space from the group dynamic that complicated things for so long. Marissa had been trying to keep the group together, planning events, sending nostalgic messages about the good times. But you can't force people to stay in a dynamic they've outgrown. She was learning what I tried to tell her months ago, that all relationships require mutual investment and understanding. When people feel like they can't be authentic or pursue their own growth, they leave. As for me and Sarah, things were progressing nicely. She met some of my friends and it was effortless. No one felt like they had to perform or compete for attention. Just adults hanging out and getting to know each other. She'd been talking about maybe taking a weekend trip together, just the two of us. The fact that this seemed normal and exciting rather than selfish or threatening told me everything I needed to know about the difference between healthy and unhealthy relationship patterns. I don't wish anything bad for Marissa. I hope she figures out how to build connections that don't require her to sacrifice other important relationships. But I'm glad I had the courage to walk away when I did. Sometimes self-respect looks like walking away quietly. And sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is refuse to accept being treated like an option.